Yeah, so welcome to our first dive in with Dom of 2024. So I hope you've all had a great start to the year, good start to the year, and whatever that means for you. Different people do it in different ways. Here in the Southern Hemisphere, of course, it's summer holidays. Up in the north, it's less of a break. And yeah, a year of ongoing inquiry, ongoing journeying. And it's so interesting. We were sitting pondering what sort of topics we're going to talk about at these seminars through the rest of the year. And having mapped out a large portion of it, it continues to strike me just how much there is to learn. Just how many different facets there are to this wonderful practice of inquiry. So this seminar, as many of you know, this session is dedicated to just raising awareness of the practice and creating a space for people to, if they are practitioners, to come and have a conversation about it, maybe explore different angles of inquiry. And if you're completely new to it, maybe to get a little taste. To get a hint of what the practice of inquiry is really about. So it is a public space, right? So we have all sorts of people here, people who have never done inquiry before, people who have been inquiring for decades. So bear that in mind. We don't try to control who's here, so anybody can show up, and we do record it. Right, so the meeting is recorded. Only the sessions in this meeting room are recorded. So at some point, if you want to, you'll go off and do a little exercise in the breakout room, and that's not recorded at all. And that part of the meeting you hold in confidence, so you don't discuss somebody else's inquiry. I'm curious to see anybody here for the first time. If you are, just wave your hand. Okay, Alice, Laurel, hi. Oh. What's your name there? Chai. Okay, yeah, great.
Hey.
And say again?
Chai.
Okay, great, lovely. Yeah, well, welcome. I hope you will find something interesting here. And it's a place to bring, your questions. If you have questions about the practice and you want to explore different angles of it, it's a great place to come. And we invite you also to send your suggestions. So if you have any angles on it that you want to look into, or you'd like to unpack, or that you find difficult, or anything like that, or how it interacts with something else that you do, then just feel free to send those in. So we're going to begin, as we usually do, with a short practice, right? A short meditation. And so I'll invite you to find a good sitting position for that, good sitting position for a meditation. And you want to let your eyes close. And as you do, remember that fundamental orientation of inquiry. So you're approaching yourself, approaching your inner world. And you do so with a kind of friendly, interested curiosity about what you might find there. It's a very different attitude to trying to fix yourself, or change yourself, or figure out what's wrong with you. I want to remember that friendly interest. And see what's it like to be sitting there as you in this moment. Your feet on the ground, your bum in the chair. At this time of your day, taking a breath. Just noticing how you're feeling, where you're at. If you don't go off looking for stuff, but you just see right here as you sit down. How are you doing? And whatever you find, any kind of emotions or sensations or however your mind is, you're just noticing that, welcoming that. And then let your attention come to your lower belly. That broad lower belly area, the whole area below your belly button. And notice, what can you sense there? What kind of sensations are happening there? You can rest one hand up against your belly and the other hand cupping it. That might bring some warmth, some obvious sensation of the pressure of your hand. Might sense the movement of your belly wall as you breathe. And maybe somewhere in there you sense a particular little point of presence. And I'm an approach, we call it the kath, K-A-T-H. It's just something that you might notice. Fine if you don't. Maybe you sense some energy or some presence or tingling. And so we're going to take a few moments just to sit quietly, hanging out with your belly center. Just being in touch with whatever the immediate felt sensations are there. Placing your attention and doing your best to hold your attention there for a few minutes. You might notice that you don't sense much there. And if that's the case, see if that can be okay. You just continue sensing the not much. If your attention wanders off and you start thinking about other things or getting caught up in something else in your inner world, just notice that and bring your attention back to your belly, back to the sensations of your belly. So take one more breath into your belly. And then with the next exhale, you can release that focus. Let your awareness begin to open up. Taking in more of what's here. Notice again, what do you feel in your belly? And what's happening there? And begin sensing your arms and your legs. So actually feeling the sensations of your arms and legs. And then slowly add listening, consciously listening, sensing the sounds around you. And then add looking, letting your eyes gently open, and including your visual sensing of your environment. So you're sensing, looking, listening. You want to see if you can continue doing that as much as you can through the whole session, just as an experiment. So we use concentration practice, like that belly concentration, as a supporting practice for inquiry. Right? Our main gig is inquiry. That's what we're excited about, and that's what we're engaging with. And yet the belly concentration practice is very useful. I'm tempted to ask you, like, what did you find in your belly? What was happening there towards the end? See if you want to say it. Pop a word in the chat. And remember, you don't have to make anything up. You don't have to make it be more than you actually could sense there. A sense of an anchor, some vibrations, some density, some longing and sadness, pulsing, more awareness. Okay. Yeah, quite a lot. I wonder, anybody find not much? Not much there. Emptiness. Someone has some emptiness, some pulsing energy. Right. People sometimes struggle with the belly meditation because, quite honestly, I think for a lot of people, a lot of the times, there's really not that much going on there. It's not that exciting, right? It's kind of, maybe there's some little subtle sensation happening there, but maybe not, right? It's easy to get distracted because it's not necessarily a big, loud, obvious thing. Right, so it's a great concentration practice because you really have to, it really requires you to engage your concentration, to kind of keep placing your attention there, engage your will and your intentionality in concentrating there. But the truth is, a lot of the time, it's like not much, right? Maybe something. So that kind of brings us to the question of what do we do when there's not much? Right? What do we do when there's not much? So people get bored in the meditation. They don't like doing the path meditation because it's boring or because it's not interesting, or because there's all these cool things going on inside you, like all your issues and problems, and your mind is busy and your heart is engaged. You want to do all this stuff, get involved with all this content, rather than just, sitting, sensing, not much. So it's just like you lower yourself down into the ocean, right? And somebody's saying, oh, well, just hang out with that rock. And there's all this like coral, and there's fish swimming by, and dolphins, there's all kinds of stuff going on. So just sitting there by the rock doesn't seem that appealing. But in a way, it's a good practice. In many ways, in all kinds of ways, it's a good practice. One of the things it's a good practice for is that sometimes when we sit down to inquire, there isn't actually that much. Right? You see, it's easy to get hooked into the notion that inquiry is all about solving our problems, dealing with our issues, dealing with the intensity of emotions and all of that. And there's nothing wrong with that, right? It is. The truth is, for a lot of us at the beginning, for a long time, right, it really is a place in which we grapple with our issues. We get to really get to know ourselves and come to know ourselves, and get in touch with feelings and things, experiences and parts of ourselves that we haven't encountered before, haven't allowed before. And so a lot of time with that, there can be a lot of intensity. And the impulse in our personalities to deal with our problems, to get rid of those issues, to deal with our suffering and all the different ways that we suffer is strong, right? So it's natural that that is where a lot of our focus goes. And at some point, right, our openness to ourselves, our curiosity about ourselves, about our experience, in a sense, has got to begin to expand beyond that. If the only time you sit down to inquire is when there's a problem, oh my God, I'm like all mad about this thing, or I'm all hurt, or I'm all afraid. Often those kind of reactions, right? It's the trigger to inquire. So what makes you inquire? Like what does, if you really look at that, what makes you sit down and get interested in yourself and want to find out what's going on? So there are many limitations with this. I don't want to say problems with it. It's not exactly that they're problems, but they're definitely limitations. Right? One thing is that there might be, actually, before I go there, one of the things that this can show up, and I've kind of encountered, sort of sat with people and they say this kind of thing, is they say, well, I don't know, there's like not really much going on. I haven't really got anything to inquire into, right? As if not having that intense reaction or that intense issue means there isn't anything to inquire into. And I've heard people say, oh, I was going to come to, do the inquiry class, but I didn't really have anything to bring, so I thought I'd just not come. Or I was going to go to small group. If you're in the school, if you're in the Diamond Approach, go to your small group, but you don't really do it, or you go there and you just sit there. You don't say anything because there's not really anything to inquire into. But in a certain way, I want to say like, what do you mean there's nothing to inquire into? Right? What is inquiry? Inquiry is just exploring your consciousness, exploring your experience, exploring your inner world. Whatever is happening there. Anything, wonderful, terrible, and everything in between. And so we make these kinds of assumptions that, oh, it's worth inquiring into this because I'm having a hard time with it, but it's not worth inquiring into, well, I just feel kind of okay. Not really much happening. I mean, hallelujah, right? There's not really much happening. There isn't some issue that's kind of totally clogging you up and occupying you. Why is that not a wonderful thing to explore? Why is that not a precious moment to go, okay, let me just hang out with this and see what it's like. What's it like to be here when it's not about the problem? Right? Can you see what an amazing entry point that might be? Or what's it like to be here when there's just nothing really much happening in my mind? Well, that's interesting. What's an empty mind like? Did you ever just sit and inquire into that? Like, oh, my mind is kind of not really much happening. It feels kind of still, quiet. It's like as you hang out with that, you just let it happen. You feel into the stillness, the quietness. Who knows what happens, right? Who knows, really? Oh, wow, suddenly feels like the whole sense of it is beyond my head. Right? I realize I'm sitting here and I'm talking and I'm articulating, but there's no thoughts, there's no mind at all. Who knew that was even a thing? Right? So same thing with feelings, like, oh, well, not much. How do you feel? Well, I feel kind of fine. What's that kind of fine like? If we just get really close and just feel that kind of fine, like kind of light, some sort of very light kind of, actually, as I'm with it, it feels, there's something about it. What is that? What can I say about that? It feels, it's got a kind of delicacy to it. Yeah, it's very much in my heart, something in my heart. It's not familiar kind of emotion. For some reason, I want to say it has like a slightly peachy kind of color to it. Sort of peachy, like feels kind of just intimate and contented and slightly sweet and somehow very satisfying. Wow, right? Who knew that was there? We get worried, like if we don't, there's no impulse to do anything. You're like, well, what do I want to do today? I don't really want to do anything. Oh, what's that like? Right? How's that? That experience, to be open to that experience, to think that there is something interesting there, something worthwhile. And instead, a lot of the times what happens, we go like trawling off for something. We go, you pull out the history books. Oh, well, this issue or that issue, or you start like looking for some, scratching around for something in your life to kind of talk about. Anybody recognize any of this? You ever done this? Yeah, I got to find some issue to kind of talk about or some problem. And it's really at that moment that I want to say like the distinction, sometimes it often feels to me a bit, if I'm honest, like that distinction between, well, it's definitely not therapy, it's a spiritual practice. But then it becomes very obvious. At that moment, it becomes very obvious that what we're doing is just this spiritual practice of coming to know yourself and your being, right? It's not about trawling through your history or trawling through your issues. It's only about trawling through those when they are what's arising, when they are the thing that's kind of being pushed to the surface and looking to be explored. Right? Inquiry is so much bigger than that, so much broader. Right? The scope of it is so vast because it's just your experience, your conscious experience, whatever it is that's arising. You just get close to it, you see what's it like. How do you experience it? What's the feelings, sensations? How's your mind, your energy? How does it affect you to recognize it? And as you know, all of these things are kind of living, unfolding things. So as you stay with your experience and you're in touch with it, and you just give it a little space and a little immediacy and a little contact, things start unfolding. I know some of my own most fruitful sessions I ever had with my teacher was sitting down, start the session, and I'm like, yeah, I have no idea. I have no idea where I am or what's here. There's nothing kind of obvious. Let's see. And you know, sometimes what happens, like, looks like a little something, and then it looks like a little something, and then you know how it goes. Suddenly you're like into something really big, like really huge, that you would just, you know, you'd never have imagined would have unfolded out of just that, well, not too much place. So I really wanted to, you know, kind of just bring that to your attention. Bring that invitation to be open to exploring really wherever you are. Right? And as I said, it's not that there's a problem with problems, right? It's not that you shouldn't go there. If that's what's there, go there. But don't miss the times when it isn't. Don't think there's something wrong because, oh, I don't know what to talk about. I don't know what to explore. Go to those inquiry appointments and see what happens. Yeah, so I think that was kind of most of what I wanted to say. Let's see, anything else? So it's really the truth that there is never nothing to explore, right? And if there is nothing, then the nothing is really what you can explore. There are so many different grades of nothing, different kinds of nothing, different kinds of emptiness. And every kind of emptiness is a doorway. The more precisely and clearly you can recognize, oh, nothing much here. Well, what nothing? Like what is that not much like? Right? Is it like, does it feel like deep and empty, or does it feel like light and airy? Or does it feel just kind of void, or does it feel bland, or does it feel, I mean, there are so many different things that it could be. And to let yourself just hang out with it, just see, just explore. That's really the invitation. So I want you to have some time to go and look into this for yourselves. So we're going to pop you into a breakout room. You will be with, let's say, 2 other people. So you'll be in groups of 3, if that works. And you're each going to take 5 minutes. And I want to invite you to look into your own habits and your own patterns with inquiry, right? And what I mean by that, I mean, what prompts you to inquire? What do you do if there doesn't seem like much to inquire into, right? Can you let that be the case and simply explore the not much? Some people always have an agenda. I'm thinking, I have one student in particular who always likes to start the session like with a list of like the 10 things that are like on her. These are on my agenda. These are the things that, you know, my mind is bringing along that I want to look into, right? And that can be very useful. And sometimes, do you always have to do that, right? Can you just jump in and just see what's here now? And sometimes when we're doing that, it can be because we jump in and we're not sure. We're not sure. It's not familiar. We don't know. We don't know exactly where to go with it. So to allow yourself the discomfort with that, and that's a word that's worth mentioning as well, that hanging around with not much can be a little uncomfortable. You know, your superego might have opinions about it or judgments. Oh, you should have something to say. You should have more to come up with. Very important to look out for that, right? So that you're able to give yourself the gift of actually being with these more subtle kind of openings. Yeah. What would happen if you just lowered yourself in and explored right where you are without any agenda? Okay. And if you're completely new to inquiry and you haven't done, is there anyone, let's check that, who's completely new to inquiry? People that are new here, anybody who's new to inquiry, never inquired before? Okay, I don't see any hands going up. All right, good. Enjoy. Go see what you discover. That'll be 15 minutes together. We'll add an extra 5 minutes so that you can meet and say hi and, have a couple-minute discussion afterwards. And we'll be back here at 25 past. 25 past the hour. All right, enjoy. Okay, so welcome back. I'm curious, how was that for you? What did you find out? What did you learn or discover? How was it to look into your own sort of patterns of inquiry? We've got some time now, got some questions or comments or sharing, anything you'd like to ask. Go ahead. So if you want to say something or ask something, just raise your hand. Use the reactions button at the bottom. And then raise your hand and you'll float to the top. And there's Umtraut. Hey, Umtraut.
Yes, thank you very much for giving us or me the permission to value something I've never actually valued before, the nothingness. And it was quite interesting to experience that the left part, the right part of me didn't, the inner critic didn't think much of it because it wanted to verbalize. Mm-hmm. And yet when I went to the part where nothing is okay, it was white and pure, and it felt clean, and it felt non-verbal. And it was really quite interesting to have been there and experienced that.
Absolutely. Very important, very important.
Thank you.
I want to point out something really kind of, it looks paradoxical about it, and yet this is part of the beauty of the practice, is that you said it's non-verbal and not, it's not about, it's not, and the superego wanted you to articulate and want to talk about it, but that's exactly what you were doing.
I was,
verbal,
and yeah.
It's white, it's pure, it's nothing happening, or whatever it was, right?
Yeah, and I was aware of that. I was doing exactly that.
Yes.
And yet it's become part and parcel of inquiry.
Yes.
To verbalize what we experience.
Exactly. So it's the astonishing thing, and people, like certainly people who are newer to inquiry might not kind of get that at first. That I was thinking of doing, we might do this as another topic at some point, but that question of like how to inquire into something that that's nonverbal, but you just, that's exactly what you were doing there. Right? You just keep talking about what it's like. If it feels nonverbal, you say, well, it feels nonverbal, right? And that in itself is continuing to notice, to recognize the experience. You don't have to change it. You don't have to do anything to it.
I don't have to be verbal, but what I mean is that it's the almost the exception of letting the witness know what is there.
Yes.
So there's a kind of pattern already, or how can I say, a habit that one must verbalize it.
Yes. And in a way, it's true, right? So inquiry is not just sitting there in silence for 5 minutes, right? Or 10 minutes. I mean, sometimes we do. But at some point, you do, if you're inquiring, you want to actually be talking, right? You do actually want to say what's there. But the trick is that you can go into a non-verbal space, or into a space of no words, or a space of silence, right? And you can just let it happen and just say something about it, right? Just describing it as it's happening.
Describing it still. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it sounds like that happened. That's exactly what happened for you. Oh, wonderful. Wonderful.
Thank you.
Yeah. White and pure and
clean. Non-verbal.
So what's so interesting as well, you can see there, so there's some quality of presence there, right? That's presence that's showing up there. And it would be so easy if we're too busy with the stories or the, you know, the issues or the whatever, you just miss the presence itself, right? Because some qualities like will, like the white, a lot of the time, part of how it feels, certainly at first, is like there's nothing happening. Like it's just there. There's nothing happening. Feels like nothing happening. Boring, just there. Right? And then you begin to notice, oh, but it feels clean. It feels pure. Has this whiteness.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Thanks for giving us the permission. I really appreciate that. That was great.
Take it and run with it. You're welcome. Yes, Meryl, go ahead.
Yeah, in our triad, we were all talking about how it's like a holding environment, and how having the witness helps. And that's definitely the case for me. It took me to grade 1, which was a new beginning, because kindergarten was terrible for me. And when I went into grade 1, I had hope for a new beginning. And as you know, this is a new year. And I am beginning to have hopes for a new year, but I am so in touch with what happened in grade 1, because the same old, I have complex PTSD. So the same old reactions happened, where I was severely criticized for being unhappy for no reason. And
so how is it to make space for that part? So that little grade 1 part is here. Is she here? Are you in touch with her actually?
Very much. And I put my two hands on my heart and told her that I'm, or whatever part of true essence of me is here with her. But I can barely imagine the holding environment. I just know that inquiry says that we trust each other's journeys. So by faith, I know that. But when I'm alone, I cannot do it. I need the inquiry to even imagine an adult saying, honey, it's okay, I'm here.
But notice how, as you see that little part, something in you just naturally responds like that. Okay? So as you see that little 6-year-old with that horrible situation, right? What naturally showed up in you was something that says, honey, I'm here with you.
That's because we're an inquiry. It doesn't show up as easily when I'm alone or when I'm out there in the world. what
Wow.
shows up are those fierce inner critics.
Right. Right. So when your attention is on the young part, when you place your attention and are present with the young part, your kindness shows up, right?
Yes.
And for one, yeah, feel that. Take a breath with that. And here's a quick question for you. If you look at those mean critics from
Yeah.
here, like what would you say to them?
Fly a kite. Go
Say again?
fly a kite.
Say that again? Yeah?
Oh, go fly a kite. Like,
Go fly a kite. Oh, yeah. Go fly a kite. I mean, exactly. So do you see how naturally that comes too?
it's coming because I keep going to inquiry. It's coming that I can tell them to go fly a kite. But I still am going through this so much in this new year. It's just so hard for me to trust that my life can not remain like stuck.
Yeah, makes sense. So it's just about seeing the part of you that finds that hard. You know? Yeah. Yeah. How are you doing right now?
Full of feeling better, plus full of questions.
Good. Your curiosity is bubbling then.
Full of sort of scared questions like, teacher, will you help me, teacher? You know, the grade 1 teacher didn't, right?
Right. So the questions coming from that young part of you, or
Yeah.
do they feel like your questions right now?
It's coming from the young part, and there's as I grew up as an adult, I call her struggling self, like the one who's trying to be, the more wise adult has those same questions, because I seem to be finding it so hard to validate. Like, I know that little one, that little 6-year-old was in touch with, I think they call it the soul child, like, with intuition and wisdom and stuff, but of a very young, right? Yeah.
Obviously, there's a whole inquiry here, which we can't go into, just all here. But just to recognize, Meryl, just to see that piece, that by seeing the two sides of it, right? The little part that's so hurt, and then the kind of mean attacking part, as you were with both of those and saw both of those, something really opens, right? And yeah, the truth is, I mean, we're sitting here talking about what happens when there's not much. Sometimes we wish there would be not much, because we're with these places that seem to come up again and again. Right? But the more you open to them and see them, right, and are with them, the more your presence can respond. And that's really the magic of inquiry. Yeah, something can respond that couldn't respond back then.
Yes. Thank goodness.
Thank goodness. Hallelujah. Really.
Thank goodness.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that, bringing that forward.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Yeah, Alice, go ahead.
I love the use of your term friendly interest versus just curiosity. Curiosity oftentimes has a bit of an edge, a bit of effort. Like if I'm curious, I have to try to find what's going on, whereas friendly interest evokes in me this sense of warm invitation, like I'm meeting somebody for the first time and they're a person I, for some reason, feel really attracted to, and it's like they're giving me a warm invitation to get to know me in a certain way, and it really shifts the way I feel going into the inquiry.
Beautiful. Yeah. Yeah, that's lovely. That's lovely. It's great to just remember that, because it can change the whole ease then of the inquiry. You know, you're just hanging out with yourself, being kind of friendly and interested.
Yeah.
And, you know, you see what you find.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Lovely. You're welcome. Yeah, I'm glad that's useful. Yeah. No.
Hi, Dom, and everybody else. I just want to say that repeatedly in these sessions with you, the short inquiry space always amazes me, the depth that everybody just in 5 minutes just is in there. And I've just sort of, I've named it a few times, but I've never caught, and see, let me backtrack for a moment. One of my responses in the inquiry was, because when you asked during your talk about why we do inquiry and when we do inquiry, and that sort of brought me up short, because my initial answer is I do inquiry because I was scheduled with some inquiry partners. Okay, end of story.
That's a good prompt.
Yeah. But then it brought my attention to, well, how come I'm not inquiring all day, every day, we'll say, you know, that's an exaggeration, but I don't. So I'll come to it randomly during the day, but the rest of the time my space is filled with doing or worrying or stressing or something. So the bit about the 5 minutes inquiry, it just landed on me a few moments ago. Okay, just here and there during the day, 5 minutes is enough. The potential depth in those few moments is incredible.
Yes. It's actually quite a profound thing that, and I'm thinking, actually, I mean, I was dealing with a whole lot of stuff going on, and builders and all kinds of things, and to just have even less, a couple of minutes to just sit down, take a breath, and just like, oh, where am I? Business for me, what's going on for me? And just that, right? That's all it takes to really get back in touch with yourself. And it's amazing how little time it takes, and it's all right there. It's just waiting to be met, you know? Yeah.
And
So
just hearing you
all day, every day. Like you said, it can just be, yeah, what if it's just 5 minutes, a couple of times? And, you know, there might also be things that really do prompt you. I'm sure if you have some kind of issue up, you know, do you ever think to inquire into something, or do you more?
It'll happen if I'm hiking, if I'm out walking the dog. I mean, there'll be a degree of inquiry going on most of the time at some level or other, but there can be so much missed in that. Like an example this evening was in your invitation to feel into nothing. There wasn't nothing there. There was a lot of stuffiness, and part of that was the physical, having eaten quite recently and eaten quite a heavy meal. But instead of just battling against that and trying to get to the other side of that, it's just sitting there with it for a moment, and to see there was a whole other element going on that was keeping me from from seeing the distraction of the fullness. There was actually quite a profound loss running behind it that I was not in touch with at all. Yeah. And that was just in a moment. Didn't take 5 minutes.
Yeah. I mean, you raise another very interesting point, which can be, so I kind of was contrasting not much with all the, just reactions. But of course, another class of experience that we don't think to inquire into is sort of mundane experience, like I'm tired, or I've just eaten and I feel full, right? And really, those experiences can be very, very interesting. If you sit down and you go, well, I just feel really full. Have you ever really consciously let yourself experience that? Like, what's that actually like? To feel the fullness, to feel the kind of how that impacts your body. Like, you can inquire into tiredness. I actually remember this from a particular session with my teacher many years ago. I just thought, I'm just inquiring. I just feel so exhausted. I mean, it unfolded over the course of like a half an hour into these most incredible, sort of beautiful states. And honestly, all I was doing was just being with the tiredness and letting my soul do its thing, right? And it's beautiful what happens. Why is that any different, right? Or so really anything, mundane experience is good too. If you're hungry, tired, something going on in your body, it's all fair game. Yeah, thanks for bringing all that in.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thanks, Mel. Anyone else got something to share? Or yeah, Tia, go ahead.
Oh, there we go. Sorry about that. Yeah, I have really grown to love inquiry, and I'm kind of wondering about something, because this was before I even started to do any of the work in that. Sometimes I would be just stop, and I'd be reading something, and I'm just like, what is this? And I wouldn't understand something. But to my surprise, just naturally, I would end up understanding what that was. And I began to see that kind of a pattern, and that made me, I took advantage of that. And as soon as I sit down and I'm just with myself, and that I feel very quickly that I am present inside myself. And I feel like I am talking with the dearest friend on earth. And it's challenging too, especially when it's like homework and that, and trying to get around and trying to practicing not knowing and things like that. But sometimes I don't know what I want to talk about, but something always comes up and it always delights me. And like you do too, some of my best inquiries have been just sitting by myself, having a cup of tea or having a cup of coffee, and I wonder about something. And if I don't have anything, I start to wonder about things that make me very curiosity about what's possible on this earth and what's possible for me. And things come up. It might be far away. It feels like it's a distance, but it's already like, ooh, oh, wow, what's that? And I know that it's going to get closer and closer and closer to me.
Uh-huh.
And I am, all in all, I, besides the challenges, which there are, to be more present while I'm doing these inquiries, which I'm also learning through that. It's I don't feel alone.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
if you feel that, do you feel that right now?
Yeah, I do.
What's that like? If you feel the not aloneness,
It's there's an element of joyfulness, and it's a relaxed joyfulness. It's really a feeling of here of that I'm actually here.
so it feels
Yeah.
like you're here. And what's that like? If you you being here, what is it
Yeah,
that's here?
it's a little bit different from, I'm not experiencing any anxiety or what am I going to say, and I'm just coming more of what more out from what I feel and the delight, because this is a delightful topic to me. It really is,
Yeah,
because
so
that the whole thing about that, I don't have to figure it all out by myself. This inquiry is a treasure to me.
yeah. Seems to make you very happy. Yeah.
Mhm. Sorry, I
It
didn't
seems
hear you.
to make you very happy. Brings a lot of joy.
Oh yeah. In this direction, I mean, I could take the other turn too, but it's usually not during an inquiry.
In this particular moment.
Yeah, and it's inquiry by myself, with myself.
Yes.
It's a little bit more challenging in other areas with the teacher saying right away, "Where are you right now?" That's a little different.
But let's not skip over, because you said sometimes you sit down with yourself, and there's that feeling of sitting down with yourself, being with that best friend, right? That friendly.
Yeah, and that feeling of not being alone.
That's there.
Ooh,
So,
that's
how do you? So just notice that feeling, Tara. Can you feel it now?
Mhm.
How do you feel it? What do you feel in your heart, or how do you sense it?
Oh, I feel it in my whole torso.
Oh, so what do you
Yeah,
sense it?
yeah,
What does it feel like?
yeah. Yeah, that's nice. Yeah. Hmm. And
Does it feel like full or
oh
empty?
yes, yeah, yeah,
Feels full. And does
yeah.
it feel like kind of solid
Oh,
or
relaxed,
relaxed,
happy, you know. Yeah,
happy? Okay.
yeah. A little bit feisty too, you know.
I see.
Uh,
Okay.
uh,
Beautiful. Yeah, very nice. Lovely to be close to yourself. Lovely to know that it's so good to be close to yourself.
it's just so much fun too.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that.
Mhm.
Ooh.
And what I would like is to bring it out into, not that I have to be sitting here doing that, that it spreads out.
I see. So that's
Yeah.
something that you want.
Yeah. Yeah, because there is a turn off switch in me.
Okay. Well, so
Yeah.
something you can get curious about what turns it on.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, lovely. Hmm. Anything else? Yeah, great.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, Laurel. Go ahead.
Hi.
Hey.
I was wondering if you would speak a little bit about why it's important to verbalize during inquiry, because I don't tend to do that on my own. You know,
Mhm.
I am forced to do that when I am, you know, with somebody who, a teacher or whatever. And I'm just curious. I started out in the Zen tradition.
Right.
Um,
I was
and
wondering if you were a meditator.
yeah. And not very, very deep, but there was no, maybe it was, there was no curiosity. I'm not sure, but I was wondering what verbalizing, does it
Well,
have?
let me ask you, what do you notice? What kind of effect does it seem to have for you? Like
What?
when you actually talk about your experience and you
Oh.
verbalize it versus when you, for example, just sit. What do you notice? What's the difference?
Verbalizing sort of shines a light on a particular thing, and yeah, I guess when I do verbalize, then I keep getting everything keeps changing, and yeah, everything keeps changing, and there's uh the surprise of really nothing to hold on to, sort of.
Right. So that can, of course, that can happen. So as you articulate your experience and you verbalize it, it changes. But the experience will change, often will change, sometimes without verbalizing it is also kind of changing. I think it's true that verbalizing experience does bring more dynamism in. So it brings more change because there is something in the recognition, right? Because one of the things we're doing in verbalizing it, you are actually seeing it and recognizing it for what it is, right? And that recognition has an effect on you, has an effect on the experience. It kind of brings about a whole, like it's one thing that you can just be feeling as feeling, but when you recognize, oh, actually I'm feeling sad, that has an effect. And when you recognize, oh, I'm feeling sad because of this and this and this, right? That has yet more of a different effect. So you're kind of revealing more and more of the meaning of the experience, right? So that sort of revelation and discrimination of the meaning of the experience, because the experience has meaning, right? It's not just haphazard or random, right? It's happening for a particular reason. And this process allows us to, in time, to recognize it, to see the meaning, and to understand the experience, right? To actually kind of understand what's going on. And that in turn will lead us to actually recognizing and understanding our own nature, what we are, what we actually are, right? And that again has very powerful impact. So the verbalization is kind of one of the first steps in that. Well, first step, like getting in touch, being aware, getting in touch, and then actually beginning to recognize and to see the meaning. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense, yeah. Meaning sort of I'm not quite sure about the word meaning.
Uh-huh. Yeah, I would really, I would throw the question back to you and really let you, so try it out, like try inquiring and actually verbalizing and talking about it and see for yourself what it does, right?
Mhm.
What the impact of what you see for you, the impact of that is.
Mhm.
That'll be a worthwhile exploration.
Oh, most definitely. Yes. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Wonderful. Thanks for the question. Right, everybody, that brings us to time. So lovely to see you all again. And we are going to be meeting again on February the 14th. Yes, Valentine's Day.